Everyone, I hope you can hear me, but we're going to call this meeting to order, and we're going to do so by opening in prayer. Lord, this is an unusual meeting. It's been an unusual year. We have traversed this year with fear and trembling, but with a great deal of excitement that on the other end, and every step we take, you're there, and we count on that every day. We thank you that you're here today as we conduct this meeting. In Jesus' name, amen. And I see that we have 6 participants. Is that right?
We have 36.
Yeah, which is a quorum.
Yep.
Is Chris here as well?
Yep, Chris is here.
Okay. Yeah, usually the clerk announces the quorum, but due to the fact that we're doing this, I'll just say we have a quorum. Is that all right? Okay. Now, Lisa, I would like for you to talk to the congregation about how they vote and take us through some steps.
So before we get started, I just want to, like Steve said, give everybody a rundown on how voting is going to work. There's only a couple of motions, but it's important that we get everybody's voice. So if you can, click on the participants button on your screen. It should be near the bottom, and that should open the participants tab. And at the very bottom of the participants tab, you should see buttons that say yes, no. Those buttons are what we're going to use to do a vote. So before we go anywhere, I would like to do just a quick test vote. So if everyone can just click the yes button so we can make sure we all know how to do it before we get started.
Hey, Lisa, this is Luke. I think you said participants tab. You actually want to hit the reactions.
There are two different versions of Zoom. So it may be under the reactions.
Mine was under reactions, yeah.
Okay, so it's either under reactions or participants. And either way, they should be at the bottom of your Zoom screen right now. So if you can just make sure you click the yes button, not a thumbs up or a hand raise or, you know, and anything like that, the yes button, because it tallies the votes for us that way, so I can keep track of everybody.
I do not have that. I can't find it.
At the bottom of your screen, is there like a little taskbar at the bottom of the Zoom screen?
Yeah, they might have to put their mouse arrow down there.
Yeah, if you move your mouse towards the bottom of the Zoom screen, there should be a little taskbar that pops up. And it'll have either the participants or reactions where you can find the voting buttons.
Don't see it, but.
When you get the participants bar, the next screen that shows will show your name, and at your name is where you vote.
Yeah, you can do it there as well, I think.
Yeah, I tried to hit the yes. I hit the yes under participants, and it didn't go anywhere. But then it pulled up the participant page, and I voted there.
Okay. So it looks like we've got about half of everybody who's found it.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Find the yes and the no buttons are really tricky to work with my tab, with my speech.
Sure.
So I'm not finding, I can find participants and a whole bunch of other stuff. So you may not get my yes or no.
Okay. Well, these votes, just so everyone understands how this works, according to Presbytery, we have to reaffirm all of the votes that we hold today virtually in an in-person meeting when we can all get together. So these votes are all kind of tentative anyway, and they'll be reaffirmed later on.
Okay,
Could
I'll
we,
vote by proxy.
Okay.
could we vote just by saying yes? If we can't get it to work electronically?
So that we're trying to make sure that we don't have too many people unmuted at once in the meeting, just because we do have, 30 people in here or so, and it can get a little.
Well, the easy way is
unwieldy.
when you're done voting, just I'll say yes or no.
All right.
Sure, we can do it separately. We can have a voice vote separately, and we're just trying to streamline the process. So, but I think most people have gotten the voting, so I think we're good to go and continue the meeting. Steve.
Okay, we're ready to continue on. And the first thing that we'll do is the remembrances. And now, Lisa, do we have a video for that? Or, yeah,
I have some slides prepared. Sure.
yeah, okay. You want to put those up?
Lisa?
You've done muted.
I did.
Lisa? Where'd Lisa go? This is weird. There's two of us.
Lisa, can you hear me? This is Chris.
Yes, Chris.
Some screens have 2 people in them. How will we count 2 votes for those screens?
I will be trying to keep track of that.
Okay, thank you.
Well, you all saw the names of the 4 people that we lost this year. I believe the most recent is Anita Ferris. Yeah. And Anita contributed to our life in so many special ways. She was a delight. She was funny, a little sarcastic at times, which I love. And anyway, all these are very special people that we've lost. And so I think it would just be appropriate to just take a moment of silence, and then I'll close in prayer as you all remember all those folks. So let's take a moment of silence. Dear Lord, you have allowed us to dream with those individuals that we have lost this year. And our memories are still energized by our conversations. We pray that their families are warmed by the thought that they all stand with you. They are all in your presence. And this we give thanks. Thank you for those people in our lives. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, thank you. And now we're going to move on to the corporate meeting. This is a meeting of any business that changes the nature of the corporation or involves the corporation itself. And we will open that meeting, and Luke, if you're there, he will conduct this corporate meeting.
Thank you, Steve, and good morning, everybody. It's good to see your faces. It's been a while. Yeah, so I will now officially open up the meeting of the corporation. So I called this meeting to order. Typically, I would ask the clerk of session if we had any items on the docket. I don't believe we do, but Chris, I don't know if you want to unmute and answer that. Now I'll just take that as there are no there are no items on the docket, and I'm not aware of any, and Pastor and I have discussed that we don't believe there are any.
There are no.
Thank you, Chris. And I then would ask if there are any items of old business. Or are there any items to be brought up from the floor? Hearing none, I guess we are now complete with our corporate portion of the meeting.
Yes, and so I'll officially close the corporate meeting and move on to the rest of our financial report for the year. So Luke, you're still up. Or,
Actually-
excuse me.
Actually.
Sorry, Leslie.
Thank you, Leslie.
All right, so we're going to just go through briefly. As everyone can imagine, the numbers for income are going to be very down. If you'll look at the slides here, for the most part, I will address the general offerings. We were down by a little over 42,000 this year. The good majority of that is not our pledges. Our pledges were very consistent with what we had budgeted for. The vast majority is our loose offerings and our identified giving, where we're not in church to collect it. So other income is down. We did have to take $1,000 from the designated session reserves, but helping out just a little bit, we had a grant of $10,000 that the church received, EIDL. So that helped offset. Okay, next slide, please. The awesome thing here is you can see everybody chipped in and underspent their budget for the year. So it helped lessen that impact of the fact that our income was down by so much. Buildings and grounds by a little over 4,000, Christian ed 3,200, finance, history room. You know, you can just see as we go through office and computers, excellent, awesome job. Outreach and mission, just a quick word on that. That was mostly our advertising and more administrative costs. All of the donations that we do to the various groups were kept at their normal levels. So that part is just more of the administrative costs where we tried to pare things down. Personnel, we had a change over, and so there was a little time where we had a transition between Tony and Robert. So there was a little bit of time where we didn't have one in that position. Stewardship, not much to cut there, but at least a little bit was done. And then finally, worship and music by almost 4,500. So in total, everybody that's in charge of these committees did an excellent job, and we cut out a little over 32,600 from our expenses, which does help minimize the impact of the fact that our income was down. Okay, next slide, please. So as a summary, the plan for 2020 is what was budgeted for. You can see the actual there. We had originally predicted a $29,600 loss. When we net out the two items, it was actually $58,710, but we also were able to obtain a forgivable loan Paycheck Protection Program, and the church's share was a little over $53,605. So once we factor that in, we were only down about 5,100. Okay, next slide. This just gives you a picture of where the designated reserves and endowment are here. I mean, we are lucky in that we have a lot of investments that if we need to, we can draw from if things keep going with income being down a little bit. So as a church, we're actually in a very good position to weather years like this. Okay, next slide. I'll just address the investments that we have. As you know, with the loan company, we now have a total of $770,000 that we're keeping as principal. We received a little over $47,700 last year. So it's a 6.21% return on investment. More Financial does give us a $3,000 check quarterly. That's the $12,000 in cash received. But even after we took that out at the end of the year, we still had over $350,000 in there. So just under a 15% return on investment there. And then just the combined line between the two. So as I said, you can see that this gives us a much better picture of where the church is financially. We have a lot in reserves. Okay, next slide. And then again, everybody's aware of the fact that you can donate electronically. And I believe, yeah, anybody have any questions at this point?
Just wanted to mention on the online giving, if they're going to use Vanco or PayPal, there is a fee with that if you're using a credit card. And just keep that in mind when you're tithing, that the fee does come out. If you're going straight from your bank, there's no fee with Vanco, but if you're using a credit card for payment, just know that there's a percentage of a fee. It's about 3.5%. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Pat.
Leslie?
Yes.
What was the endowment reserve? I don't know. I'm not familiar with that. The 15 something.
That's I'd have to. That's generated off a report that I get from Pat. Let me see if I can pull up what that is from.
Because we don't have any of your funds anymore.
Okay, that's probably left over from last year, and so I should probably take that out.
It looks like that's almost a contribution for this year, that $15,000.
Oh, that may be it. That's probably where that number is coming from. So it's not technically reserve, but it's contributions to endowment. George, you're muted.
Yeah. Does that help, George?
Yeah, it's a contribution from endowment,
Okay.
not to endowment.
Okay.
If that's what it is, yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Leslie? Okay, well, I think we'll move on then. Leslie, thank you very much. Anything you'd like to say before you go?
Just thank you all for bearing with me as I get my feet a little more on the ground with the treasurer. I've been doing it for just a little over a year, so
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Well, you're doing a great job. Thank you so much. Okay, Luke, you're up again.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and cover endowment this year. And why don't we go to the next slide? Basically, the endowment had a very good year, as a lot of investments did. It was a bit of a rocky year, as you might imagine, in that the start of the year with the pandemic resulted in a significant loss in most equity and bond accounts, but rebounded sharply at the end of the year, and then a very strong fourth quarter resulted in a net increase in funds, as you can see here, with a very strong income of 46,000. And I also want to thank everybody who has continued to give towards the endowment fund, you can see a very nice contribution of about $12,000 from the congregation towards the endowment fund. Next slide. And then this is just basically what we always do. We want to make sure that everybody's aware we have this fund, and if possible, please consider including it in a variety of different ways you can give, but in memorials, just gifts. You can basically establish a special endowment fund. And then if we're in church, we'd say use the pink envelope, but since we're not, if you want to donate to endowment, just mark on the check what portion you'd like to have go to endowment, or mark it on the envelope if you're mailing it in. And if you're donating by Vanco or PayPal, you can just, I think there's a comment section, you can put it there or send an email to probably Leslie would be the best way to do that. Any comments or questions on the endowment fund? All right, want to move on to the next slide. Oh, and by the way, just a shout out to George, who's been our longtime leader of the endowment fund, and George just did does a great job keeping us keeping that fund well managed. All right, now I'll move on to the 2021 budget, and we'll start off with the income. And in this chart, as we've done in past years, we're comparing what 2020's budget looks like compared to what the session has come up and approved for 21. And so we're presuming that we won't be back together inside the sanctuary as a congregation till at least mid-year. And so we're expecting income to be down similar to where it was last year. So you'll see it's down quite a bit from where we've been historically. It was about $60,000. And then likewise, other income will be down. That reflects some decreases in facility usage and that kind of thing. Now the investment income, we're basically saying that's going to be up a little bit, and at 17,000. And then the good news is, and I just want to make a really big shout out to Leslie for basically working with Union Bank to secure a second PPP loan. Now again, these loans are forgivable. So basically this money can be used in our budget, and $75,000 is what we're planning. Now we will, the entire second PPP loan is for about $125,000. And we will allocate that between the preschool and the church. The money is designated to help keep staff under employment as we're all dealing with the challenges that the pandemic is presenting on. And so the Finance Committee is recommending an allocation of about $75,000 to the church. The balance then would go to the preschool. So with that, you'll see that in fact, income will actually be higher than we planned for last year. Now, when we go to the next slide, you'll see that we're going to need that. So let's go to the next slide then. Oh, and then there's just a couple of things. I think I covered all those items. And what we have here is the budget side, the expense side of the budget. And so we're seeing once again that when we compare what the starting budgets were in 2020 versus what we're planning this year, we're anticipating that each of the committees will continue to manage costs. And so each committee has come back with their estimated budget showing a very strong effort to reduce expenditures. And again, I think like Leslie highlighted, I want to just highlight for outreach and mission, you know, we're donating to a lot of worthy causes, and right now we are maintaining those donations. This reflects a decrease in advertising and some of those other activities around outreach. Since we're not really meeting in the sanctuary, we're not doing quite as much there. If you look at all this total, then the budget compared year over year will be down about $980. Now you'll notice that the personnel budget is up quite a lot. And what we're doing here is, after discussions with the PNC, we are basically allocating money for a new pastor, and this would include a pastor's visit to our church, and then hopefully moving expenses for the pastor to relocate to San Diego if that's necessary. And finally, the amount that we would have to contribute to the new pastor's pension would be increased to reflect a permanent pastor. And so all told, that will increase the personnel expenses by about the nearly $20,000 you see there. So I think that is all I have. Can we go to the next? Oh no, and then here I'm doing the final comparison. Oh dear, sorry. It looks like on my screen, at least, it's dropped off. I can't quite see that total figure, but I will say that we're just about balanced. Certainly, given all the uncertainty in the budgeting for this year, I think we're going to call this a balanced budget anyway. Obviously, Session will be monitoring this carefully throughout the year, and we'll make adjustments and keep the congregation apprised of the situation through the email updates that we started doing at the end of the last year. We plan on doing those throughout this next year. So I think with that, we can open it for any questions. Oh, I just wanted to say a couple of things. First, I mean, we are just so blessed. God has brought us through a very challenging year. He has just continued to bless us with really strong resources, providing us with those extra PPP loans and EIDL grants. Really blessed. But the situation is that we're going to start this year again not meeting in the sanctuary, and so it's going to be another challenging year for us. But I think we'll trust in God, and He will see us through. And so those are just the final thoughts I wanted to leave everybody with. So now I guess I can take questions. Sorry.
This is Esther. I just wanted to point out in the previous slide, there's a typo or something. Music and Worship actually spent $2,897 last year, but what was reported on that last slide said $14,900.
Actually, the 14,900 is a typo, but that's our projected budget for next year. So it's 3,000.
Really?
Yes.
No, it's
3,000. It should be 3,000, not 14,900.
I thought we had corrected that. I didn't notice that particular figure.
Yeah, no, it has. We do have it in the working Excel sheet as 3,000 is budgeted for worship and music.
So yeah, we recognize you've reduced your budget by about $4,000.
We're like down to nothing except for the absolute maintenance. So okay, that's it.
Thank you, Esther. Any other questions for Luke?
Well, I'm wondering when you fall short on your budget for last year, say we were short 5,000, Where did you draw the funds to make up the deficit?
Luke, did you hear that?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if Leslie wanted to answer.
Oh, okay, we were chatting for each other.
Okay.
I know you said you had got some.
Right, we do have money in savings. We didn't have to touch any of our investment money or anything for that. So we have some money in savings that was taken from and transferred.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
Are these figures now correct based on what Esther was saying?
We made the last minute change just before the meeting, so I know in our budget they're correct, like the working spreadsheet. What's on these slides? I guess we maybe would like to take one last scrub through them, but I think they're pretty close. I'd have to ask Lisa to go backwards a few slides. We could take a look at that.
Well, I'm just curious when we vote, or what are we voting on? If we have to vote on the budget, which figures?
Well, I think the budget has
Okay.
been approved by session, and so the congregation is just made aware of the budget. Correct, Pastor?
The only
Yes.
correction we need to make is on this particular slide here. If you look at where it says worship and music, okay, it currently reads 14,900. That is not correct. That number should be 3,000.
Oh, okay. And if you go back 2 more slides, and I can't even, on my screen, I can't even see that final sum, but
I can't either.
Lisa, if you go back 2 more slides, you'll see.
Yeah, this is the correct. So basically, if you look at the amounts that are on this slide for expenses, and the previous slide is the income. So these 2 slides do have the correct figures for our budget and are what we are voting on that session has approved.
So these figures here, George, you see 471 well, sorry, the budget is for 470,578. That is correct.
Okay. Everybody satisfied with that? Any other questions?
I have a question. This is Denise.
Oh, okay. Denise.
This is a general question for kind of Lisa about our giving envelopes. I'm a little confused about how, when we went into this, it was kind of messed up because in my brain, I'm budgeted Sunday, I give Sundays. And then I realized all these Sundays went by and a lot going on, not just with COVID, but I have a family emergency with my aunt. And so I have a lot going on. And so I realized it, and then I dropped off a check, a lump sum that I thought, well, maybe how many Sundays did I miss? I don't even know. And then I've done it again. So I feel a confusion. Should I just drop off a lump sum check again to try to make up for the Sundays I missed? Or I'm not sure of how to handle this. I feel a sense of confusion about this.
Well, I think, however you feel comfortable handling it is what we would recommend. Obviously, we're appreciative of any donations that we get. So whatever you're comfortable with, if you want to give us a larger check or try to make, incremental donations, however you feel comfortable. And Luke or Leslie, you can kind of chime in on that as well. But that's what I would think.
I mean, I have this box of all these envelopes that are just sitting there.
Yeah, unfortunately, there wasn't really much we could do about the envelopes. So it's kind of up to you. If you feel, like Lisa said, if you feel more comfortable writing that once a week check and mailing it to the church, or once a month, if that's easier for you.
I like dropping it off in the thing. I live 4 blocks
fine,
away.
or drop it off as well. So it's really got to be, what are you comfortable with? Okay. So if you want to do it once a week and that's fine for you, great. If you want to do it once a month, really, it's your timing factor and what you're comfortable with.
Okay. All right. I appreciate that. I'll just do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Denise.
Sure.
Any other questions? Okay, well,
I
hearing,
think, Carl, do you
Luke?
have a question? You're muted. So
Oh.
you'll need to unmute yourself, Carl.
oh, oh, Carl's having some technical problems here?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Carl, you could always, if you can access the chat box, you might type your question into chat.
Well, when she writes the check at the end of the month or at the beginning of the month, if she puts down there in the left-hand corner, just mark it tithe, and then they know where the money should go. But if it's for something special, you just
Oh.
mark it on there in the corner.
Like in the memo part, either tithe or like endowment or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That's
Okay,
correct.
that's
Yeah,
good.
that's correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's helpful. Thank you. Thank you. Mhm.
Okay. All right, thanks a lot, everyone. Any other questions? Now, I do need to say that it is the prerogative, and it is the Book of Order guidelines that the session vote to approve the budget. The budget is presented to the congregation as information, but the session has the sole discretion of voting on the budget. So just to make that clear. So if you do have any questions, just put it in writing, send an email to a session member or to Luke. Send it to Luke. Yeah.
I love emails, so no worries.
Right. Send your question to Luke, and we'll try to get it done for you and satisfied. All right. Well, we're going to move on to Christian Ed, and I believe that Grant is up, and he's been doing some very special things with the youth and the kids in the very trying times, and he and Tony have really done what I consider a remarkable job. So anyway, Grant.
Well, thank you, Steve. That's very nice to hear. Yeah, I would say our watchword for this year was just experimentation. We were trying different things throughout the year to stay connected to all of our groups in Christian Ed. So I'll just kind of give the very quick rundown of some of the things that we've been doing and trying. For the kids, as you might imagine, trying to do anything in person during COVID is very difficult with children, expecting them to keep masks on and things like that. So some of the things we have done for the kids ministry, we did a few drive-through Kingdom Kids events. We made good use of the parking lot, set up some different stations where they could drive through it as a family and then have a little lesson. In October, when the numbers weren't too bad, we did a kind of a walk-through Halloween party where, again, families were socially distanced and wearing masks, but they got a chance to have some fun, get some candy, get a chance to see all of their friends and see all of us. And so we've done a few things like that. Tony and I have also sent some things home with parents, trying to send home some ways to do some ministry lessons, or even if just, sending them home something nice and saying hello, making sure they remember us. For the youth group, we have been meeting over Zoom on Wednesdays. We did briefly meet on the patio for a couple of months last year when the numbers weren't too bad. And we've tried to do a few special events on the patio as well, but primarily meeting over Zoom. And Roots has been almost entirely digital as well. We've been recording services just like for Sunday morning. We've been meeting on Zoom for some of our regular gatherings, like Theology on Tap, we've been doing over Zoom. And also lately, Tony and I have begun recording what we're calling a podcast. It's really just a YouTube video series, but spending some time talking about a different topic every week and sending that out to our young adults and our youth group. So they have some content to engage with and some stuff for us to talk about with them when we see them over Zoom. So that's kind of the quick rundown of what we've been doing. Like I said, lots of experimenting, trying to stay in touch with everyone as best we can. Let's see, Steve also asked me briefly to just address the task force, the church reopening task force, which I've been heading up. And we spent quite a bit of time during the sort of the late spring and summer last year getting our safe reopening plan written. And that eventually led to us being able to do some patio services that some of you were part of last year. Now we're sort of in a holding pattern, but we're going to be meeting soon to talk about policies surrounding vaccines, as well as perhaps our recommendation of a timeline for beginning patio services again. But that's sort of dependent on session. You know, the task force is really just a recommending body, not deciding that. But yeah, so if you have any questions around anything on Christian Ed or around the church task force, I'm happy to take questions.
Any questions for Grant? Wow. Okay. Well, I want to thank you, Grant, for doing all of those things. Heading up the task force, major undertaking, and the youth and the children's ministries. Thank you for keeping them alive during a very troubling time. So thanks a lot, Grant. And so we're going to move on to Steve. Many of you have had questions about, how things are moving on in the pastor nominating committee, possible dates or possible times, summer, fall. So I've asked Steve to give a report on where everybody's at on that and where they're moving. So Steve?
Well, hi. I think I'm unmuted.
Yes,
okay.
you are.
We at the PNC, the Pastor Nominating Committee, wanted to give you all an update on how our search has been progressing. Just as a reminder, we were all elected and started the Pastor Nominating Committee search in June of last year. And the team consists of myself, Natalia Avelia, John Teeling, Betsy Martin, and Mac McEwen. And then we get guidance from a liaison from the presbytery, Mariette Alva Smith.
Oops.
And, even with COVID, we've accomplished quite a lot these past few months. We completed the mission information form, which is called a MIF, and that's required for the search, and it got approved through both session and presbytery late this summer. It was then loaded up into a search system, and the pastors that matched our mission were submitted to us. Excuse me. We received several pastor information forms, that's the equivalent of resumes, that matched to our MIF. As well, we received several who self-submitted to our church. Then as a committee, we completed initial reviews of every PIF we received. We have completed several Zoom interviews with several candidates that we were interested in. We reviewed sermons of those that we were most interested in. I can tell you that we're very excited. We have some candidates that we think God is calling to be the pastor of the church, and we're hopeful to complete our search by early summer, if not sooner. So I would just ask that you keep the team in your prayers as we seek whom it is God is calling to lead our church. But we've been blessed even through this time of COVID, and I do believe we are very near. So at this time, I'll take questions if there are any.
Steve, this is Rubiana. Can
Hi,
you hear
Rubiana.
me? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you have any names that are being seriously considered?
I do, but I don't share them. The PNC doesn't want to share names because it impacts several things.
I
It could be
realize
the
it, but how
pastor.
many are in that group?
How many are in the group total? Well
No,
above 30.
the ones that are seriously being considered.
Less than 5.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for Steve? Well,
Are there any from the area, in our area, Steve, or are they all out of state?
The ones in the finals are both local and out of state.
Okay, thank you.
Steve, this is Denise. I have a question. As it moves forward and we're closer, I mean, with the COVID situation, I know before they would come to church and on a Sunday preach and we'd get to know them a little bit. How at this point in this process do we get to see them or know them a little bit before there's a final choice? Or, I mean, how does that work with this situation?
It's a good question. I don't know that we've worked through the process of how that's going to work, but it does require another congregation meeting. And typically what we would do in regular times is we would invite the nominee to come to church, lead a worship service. At the end of the worship service, we would have a congregational meeting, and we would then vote on the terms of calls and whether or not to accept the pastor. My guess would be that we might do it through a Zoom live meeting where we have the candidate do a sermon maybe, and then at the end of the sermon, we could do a congregational vote just like we're going to do today. But again, never been faced with this before. I'm not sure how the process works. But to meet the legal requirements or our own book of order requirements for calling a pastor. I'm not sure if we would have like a patio meeting and hold a vote there with a minimum quorum present. I don't know. So I can't tell you this is how we're going to do it. I can just tell you as we get close to it, we'll be working with Session on what that process needs to look like. But good question, Denise. Good question.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's going to be, well, as Steve said, it's going to be quite difficult to get a feel for someone on a Zoom or whatever, but that's what we're required to do. It's just, those are the times we live in. So thank you, Steve.
I would add to you, or add to this, that all 5 of the members, and even Mary Elba helping us, have been going through a book on understanding God's will. And we've really been working and praying for discernment that God provides us a counseling on who the candidate should be. So I can assure you that we're really listening to God as to who the candidate should be. And hopefully then you will see that as well when you meet the candidate, be it a Zoom meeting or a live meeting. I don't know, but we really believe that God has a person already picked out for us. Our goal is just to really find who is it God wants us to have as pastor.
Right. Thanks, Steve. Any other questions for Steve? Well, I just want to thank the whole team, Steve, and you especially. I know how hard you work on this. I really do. You've had several others that PNC chair responsibilities and liaison responsibilities. So thanks so much. Appreciate it. Well, my report, one of the things that the COVID season has created in churches across the country and in our presbytery and in our church is the requirement of being creative. Learning new things, opening ourselves up to technology, trying to find some way in which we can communicate, the gospel and also to create who we are. Who are we as a people? And I want to give a recognition to Esther, especially today, and Martin. They have worked very, very hard to create a virtual service that I think is tremendous. I thought, and they worked tirelessly for this kind of endeavor. And Esther, I just want to say thank you before the whole congregation here that you have done a marvelous job and created some quite imaginative things that has really helped us worship God and see some other things. And every time I watch the service, I kind of think, oh, yeah. And how that creates in me a deeper sense of my picture of God. So I just want to thank you, and I want to thank Martin for being so patient. And if you don't know, Martin does all of the camera work for the service. And that is not easy. So anyway, are you there, Esther?
Yes, I'm here.
There you are. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, anyway, I just wanted to recognize the great work you're doing. We really couldn't do this without you and without Martin. We really couldn't. It takes so much energy and creativity. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I want to say this is actually my 15th year anniversary here. So I've been here now 15 years. And speaking of a calling, it was when there was no pastor before Alan, and it was definitely a calling. And I think we're supposed to be here for this transition. So we're glad we're used. We're pretty tired and wrung out, but
yeah.
Anyway, but we're glad that we could be of service.
Oh yeah. Now break the new pastor in gently, Esther. Bring him along to your style and creativity. Yeah, the pastor's going to need a lot of help in catching up and everything. So anyway, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And to all the volunteers throughout the year. I think of Chris and Neil just taking over the mail room, passing out the mail, getting all of that done. It's just amazing. And all of the just a whole bunch of people are doing things in the midst of this trying time. And just simply want to thank everybody for doing that. Now, I don't have, Esther, did you want to say anything else? You're on mute, so you can't say anything. No. Oh, well. You okay? Okay. Yeah, all right. Well, I don't have anything else for this meeting. I always ask at the end of every annual meeting, is there anything new that anybody wants to bring up, or anybody want to just offer a question or?
Steve, this is Denise. Steve, I do.
Oh, yeah.
I would like to mention that to our congregation or whoever's here to listen. My aunt who lives up north by Oregon, really far up there, Humboldt County, which is Eureka. I used to live up there as well. And we're very close, not just aunt, niece, but friends. And she has, through the series of events, she kept falling and falling, and she's in her late 70s. And she has COPD and congestive heart failure. Also, this last time she fell about a month ago, she kept falling, and the doctor said at the hospital, next time you fall, we're sending you to a nursing home. Now, the one up there where they're speaking of, people go to die. It's the most deplorable situation. And so they said the only way they wouldn't is if she went home with a family member. Well, she has no family members to go home with. I stepped up and said, I'll bring her home with me. And so hence I went up north, 2-day trip to get up there, 2 days to get back. And I got her here. I had to rent a van and put all her equipment, oxygen, wheelchair, and all that in the van. And then the second day she was here, she almost fainted. I could see it happening again. I called the EMTs, and she was taken to my hospital, my wonderful hospital, Scripps Mercy in Hillcrest. And they said the same thing. They said, you've got to be with someone 24/7, but now it's worse. You're now in full kidney failure. So what I'd like to do is ask the congregation to support me in prayer for my aunt. She's going through a lot. And so I have her here, and they've given a certain expiration date, which I don't like. But, you know, it's up to the Father. I know it's up to God. He says when and where and how and with sovereignty of his power and love. I do know that. So I'd like to ask for support in that for my aunt. Her name's Joanne.
Joanne. Okay, I was going to ask that.
Yeah, she came. Oh, she visited. Some of you remember Betsy met her, and well, my goodness, quite a few people met her. And she was in a wheelchair at the time, but she's right here in my room. I put her, had hospice came in and put a nice hospital bed next to my bed, and she's here with me. So it's, yeah, situation.
Well, and if you'd like, we'll make that available on the prayer chain as well.
Thank you.
Steve, I'd like to ask, I've asked many times, but I'm still asking again, if anybody has any information or pictures that you would like to get in the 2020 or 2019 yearbook, please send them to me.
Yeah.
And if they want to write a little article about something that happened, I'm happy to receive those too.
Okay. Thank you, George.
Okay.
This is Carol. I'm just wondering, is there anything to vote on before we adjourn?
We are going to vote on sending the minutes to session in just a few seconds.
Can I say something about the security grant?
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Right. At the end of December, we finally got the final federal approval to use the funds. Amy Jones, the preschool director, was just so anxious to get this the Trex fence done that she forwarded school funds to do that. That required different paperwork. However, that reimbursement has been approved, so we're just waiting for that check to come back. Our next steps are, what I would like to do is look into replacing some windows and doors that are old and falling apart and need to be replaced. We're also talking about some lighting along Jewel Street and in the parking lot. Another thing is video cameras, which when we initially got the estimate for the video cameras, we were looking for 28 cameras, but since then I've been looking into that, and the maintenance on that is so expensive that we're probably going to cut that down quite a bit. and then training for active shooter training. So those are all things which we'll be commencing now to try to spend that money on to improve the quality of the infrastructure of the church.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, yeah. And if some of you don't remember that in a year and a half or something like that, that we received a security grant from the state, funded by the federal government, I believe, to improve security for churches. And so we got on that and did it, and Amy and Chris worked on this. So thank you guys so much. It's going to make our campus much more secure and much more helpful to the community as well. Carol, do you have anything else to say? No.
This is Judy Hauser, and I would like to say something.
Oh, okay.
I would like us to commend the quality of the service that we have with Donna as our Director of Congregational Care. She weekly submits a wonderful article, as well as updating all of us about what's going on in our church family, and she's there to respond anytime anyone calls or needs her.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And that leads me into my next agenda item, is that I wanted Donna to say something. If are you still there, Donna? Let's see. I don't.
I got it.
Oh, you got it? There you are. Donna, is there anything else you'd like to tell us about some of the church? Anything you need to know?
I think it's all in the report, but yes, I want everyone to know they can get a hold of me at any time. Just call, text, email me if I could be of any service. You know, it's different right now with not being able to do visits, you know, in person, but I am willing if there's any need, and I'm just here for everybody, and I thank everybody for supporting me and everybody for what everybody's doing.
Yeah. And Donna was gracious enough to correct me that I mentioned that it seemed that no one was suffering with COVID in our congregation, but Donna just let me know some. Anyway, why don't you talk about the COVID?
Well, we do have 3 members that are dealing with the COVID. We just recently found out last night that Ann Bay's daughter, Dawn, contracted it. And she's just suffering with mild symptoms, and we're praying that she stays that way. Ann is self-quarantining because she was exposed to her last Sunday. Tino Lopez is the one that's still struggling greatly with respiratory problems. He hasn't been able to work. His job is questionable, and he has a lot of issues going on. So that family, they all had it, but they're all doing okay except for Tino. He's still dealing with it, as well as Helen Sterling's daughter, Veronica. She's still suffering as well. So it is around us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so anyway, the message is for everybody to stay safe.
Yeah. And a lot of people are getting their vaccines, so that's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Donna.
Sure. Thank you.
Come on.
Steve, this is Rubiana. One more thing, please.
Yeah.
I think we owe Lisa a huge, big thank you. In spite of not being able to work in the regular way, she's kept everything going, and we thank her for all her efforts.
Yes, that's true. And one thing that she has done for all of us, that she's made herself available by phone and by other things, and kept us all moving ahead. And so thanks a lot, Rubiana.
Steve, this is Denise. I'd like to mention also thank you to Lisa, and a shout out to Donna for staying so close to everyone who needs support. And she's so loving and sends me notes. And the love, Judy and Betsy and just everybody that's so loving and kind at this congregation. I want to express that gratitude.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Well, this has been a great meeting. It's just good to come together in some form and find a way to communicate and to be together and to pray for one another. And thank you for all the prayers and the prayer concerns, so that we can be connected with one another and know what's going on. Well, the final item for today is would someone like to make a motion to send the minutes to session for approval?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay.
I'll second. George Shoemaker seconds.
All right. So all in favor, and let's see how we do on putting our votes in the bottom here.
What does that mean?
So we're using, remember everyone, the participation buttons to vote. So down at the bottom of your screen, either click the participants tab or the reactions tab and use the yes button with the green check mark, or the no with the red X to cast your vote.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Do you have that if you're on a phone?
I'm on a phone and I hit participants. I see all the participants, but I don't see a yes. I don't see it, anything like that. I see the participants.
Yeah,
go to more.
Yeah, on a phone you hit more, like
Okay,
next
more.
to your name.
Okay.
And then you should have them there, right?
Oh, where it says yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yay,
Thank
you
you,
got it.
Rubiana. Thank you, Rubiana. Thank you.
We're just happy that you got it.
I just learned something.
That's great. So are they all coming in here, Lisa? Can you see it?
Yep, it looks like we have a majority yes already, so the vote stands.
The vote stands. Okay. And now we'll have a motion to adjourn. And usually what we do here, what I've done for years, is I just have people stand and we pray together.
Standing.
But I'm not going to have you stand,
Like this.
because then we can't see you if you're at a computer.
I know what I'll do.
So I'll just pray to close the meeting. And thank you all so much for participating with this. It means a lot for the congregation. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you that we continue to work. We continue to think. We continue to listen to you and your word, and your heart to us is so clear. If we would just listen, and we thank you for the creativity that you give to us through the Spirit, and the love that you give to us for our community through the Spirit as well. Go with us now in peace. In the name of Jesus, amen.